Finishers are a great way to end your workouts for a few reasons. One, it finishes the session on a high note, so your clients leave the gym feeling good about themselves, feeling accomplished, and feeling that they got one step closer towards achieving their goals. The second big benefit is a team building aspect of the workout. So if you train clients in groups, whether it's small group personal training or semi-private training, working towards a common goal really helps build that team building atmosphere, which does wonders for client retention and motivation. The third major benefit of finishers is more from a fat loss perspective. You get what's called EPOC, which is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. Basically, finishing off the session with some high intensity work kicks your body into overdrive to repair itself throughout the day after the session is completed. That has a positive impact on your metabolic rate, basically meaning that you're burning a higher degree of calories throughout the day by completing the session with some high intensity finishers. I used to overthink exercise selection a lot when it came to writing my clients' finishers, but really at the end of the day, you want to just keep it simple. You want to use exercises that your clients can perform safely and effectively with little to no coaching cues needed, right? You want to use exercises where their technique is really good. They've done it before. They don't need to practice their form before they're doing it. You could just demo the exercise and your client can basically mirror it and just get after it and perform it at high intensity, which is the point of finishers in the first place, right? Second thing you want to consider is your client's goals, meaning that you want the finishers to match what your clients are trying to achieve in the gym in the first place. Now, that's really beneficial from a retention standpoint because if your clients leave the gym and the last thing that they did in their session is something that they feel directly impacted and got them one step closer towards their goals, it's going to incentivize them to want to come back to the gym in the first place, right? The third thing is give your clients some autonomy over their finishers. So give them a little bit of choice and a little bit of say in what exercises they do in their finishers, right? That's one of the best parts about finishers is that it's flexible and they're malleable, meaning that you have a lot of choice and selection when it comes to the exercises you could be choosing to use in your finishers, right? Some of the ones that I like to use personally are like the assault bike, the sled or prowler pushes, kettlebell swings, medicine ball slams, right? These are all movements that are, for the most part, fairly simple to perform, but you can perform them. It's as hard as you make it, right? So meaning that you get what you put into those movements, which make them such great sort of exercises for finishers. Some movements that I tend to personally avoid are movements like, box jumps or the Olympic lifts, barbell lifts, heavy overhead lifts, right? These are all movements that don't lend themselves well to finishers because one, they are meant to be explosive movements or strength movements in nature. They're not really designed for a conditioning standpoint or conditioning benefits, right? The second big thing is that a lot of those movements, all those movements actually require a lot of coaching cues, right? They're very technical movements to be performed efficiently and get the most out of them. So they're not really movements that you want to be having yourself or your clients do at the end of a session when they're fatigued and their form breaks down. And when form breaks down, injuries happen. That's what we want to avoid, obviously, in the gym as much as possible. There are 4 major finisher workout templates that I use for my clients a lot, especially when it comes to my small group personal training program. The first one is a pyramid set. So a pyramid set is just simply, you're gonna basically carve out 1 to 3 exercises. Now, the reps start high on the first set, and each consecutive set, the reps drop lower and lower. So an example of a pyramid set that I really like, it uses the assault bike and medicine ball slam. So for the first set, assault bike, my clients burn 10 calories as fast as they can. They hop off the bike, they do 10 medicine ball slams as fast and hard as they can. They go back to the assault bike, burn 8 calories, do 8 medicine ball slams, then we do 6, 6, 4, 4, 2, and 2. So it's great because it's one of those finishers where since you're doing a pyramid set, there's no set rest periods, but since the reps are outlined for you, you want to perform it as fast as you possibly can. So what I'll typically do with pyramid sets, if I'm using them as a finisher, is if I'm doing it more on a one-on-one basis, I'll time how long it takes my client to perform the entire pyramid set, and week by week, we'll try to beat that score from the previous week, right? Using the same exact rep outlines from that finisher. If my clients are doing it in a group setting, I'll encourage them to time themselves and see how long it takes them to do it and take note in their program. And again, so they can try to beat it week by week. So basically the goal here for the pyramid set from a conditioning standpoint, when we're doing it as like a high intensity finisher, is I'll usually, like I said, carve out 1 to 3 exercises and try to perform the entire pyramid set as fast as possible, record that time and try to beat it on a week by week basis to see that progression, right? Another example of a pyramid set that I might do more so with like my one-on-one clients is a sled push. Now, 40 yards. So each direction of the turf strip in my gym is about 10 yards. So meaning that they'll do 2 laps there and back. The first set, we're going to pile on twice their amount of body weight onto the sled, push it for 40 yards, so 2 laps there and back as fast as they can. We'll strip off some weight, so it's about 1.5 times their body weight. Again, 2 laps there and back, 40 yards, strip off a little bit more weight so it matches their body weight, same thing, and then at the end of that, we'll strip off a little bit more weight so it's about half their body weight, and again, do 40 yards there. That's just another example of like a pyramid set where the load or the like reps are starting high and it drops lower and lower and you try to complete it as fast as you can. I would say that this first sample is more of like a classic pyramid where the reps are dropping lower. Sample B is kind of basically technically more of like a drop set where the weight is starting high and we're dropping the weight lower and lower every single set. Second example of finishers is an AMRAP, so that means as many rounds or reps as possible. So again, I'll carve out 2 to 4 exercises. I'll probably cap it typically at 5 to 10 minutes at most. They're either going to be conditioning or metabolic based, meaning that conditioning, obviously like high intensity work, right? Metabolic might be more of like a muscle burnout, right? Dialing into some of those isolated muscle groups at the end to give you kind of like that pump work basically at the end of the session. So again, I'll set a timer for X amount of minutes and try to complete as many rounds as possible within that time frame. I'll record the results and I'll try to beat my total score next week, meaning that like if let's say I have a 8-minute finisher and I complete like 8 rounds of an exercise, I'll try to beat 8 rounds the next week, keeping the time consistent on a week by week basis. That's how I'll see progression in the program, right? So sample A for a conditioning standpoint, a team building kind of finisher that I like using is I'll pile on some weight on the sled. I'll get 1 line on one end of the turf of clients. I'll get another line at the other end of the turf of clients. Client A will push the sled 10 yards to the one end, trade places with the person in the front of the line at the other end. That other person will push it back, and we'll basically just push the sled back and forth between each lines on a 10-yard sprint and try to complete as many rounds as possible, right? Really good team building finisher if you're doing small group training or semi-private training, right? Really gets the heart rate up. I love that finisher. Sample B for conditioning would be a kettlebell swing, assault bike, and medicine ball slam. 10-minute time cap. So for the kettlebell swing, I'll usually load about 25% of the body weight, using that for the loading for the kettlebell swing, perform 10 reps. Assault bike, 10 calories, burn as fast as possible, followed by 10 medicine ball slams as hard and fast as possible. 10-minute AMRAP. Again, try to record how many rounds you get every single session, and then you're going to follow the same session, the same workout next week and try to beat those rounds, right? Really good way to kind of gauge progress and keep yourself accountable to your score because you have objective data, right? It really keeps you accountable, makes you push a little bit harder. So sample C is more metabolic. So it's more of like that muscle burnout kind of pump work that we're doing at the end of the workout, right? So close grip push-ups, hammer curls, and band pull-aparts, 10 reps of each. 8-minute time cap. You're trying to complete as many rounds or repetitions of those exercises as possible. Really good upper body burnout. Now, the third kind of template that I use for finishers is explosive repeats. So that's when we're doing a lot of high intensity work for a short amount of time with longer rest periods. The time frames from a work to rest standpoint that I'll typically use is 10:50, 12:50, 12:45, and 15:45, meaning that we're doing 10 seconds of work with 50-second rest. So I like this. There's a few things you can consider if you're going to do explosive repeats. If you're trying to accumulate more volume in this phase of your program, meaning that you're trying to add more total work, you might want to consider adding rounds. So you might add a round each week to the session to increase that volume on a week-by-week basis. If you're looking to increase the intensity more so of these finishers, you can increase the work time and or reduce the rest time of these intervals. So let's say I have 4 exercises and I have 4 different exercises that I'm doing in like a circuit fashion with explosive repeats. So example, I might have I might have like the assault bike, I might have medicine ball slams, I might have high knees, and I might have either a sled push or like lateral slides, right? I've got four different movements that I can perform at really high intensity for a short amount of time. If I have 4 of those exercises, I'll typically get my clients to do 2 total rounds of those 4 exercises. So it's not going to take them any longer than 8 minutes to complete these explosive repeats as a finisher. On it, from a progression standpoint, what I'll do if I'm like trying to, let's say, like intensify the workout a little bit and make it a little bit more challenging on a week by week. Week 1, I'll have 2 rounds of 4 exercises. I'll get them to do 10 seconds on with 50-second rest between each station. The second week, I'll increase the work time to 12 seconds, keeping the rest time at 50. So they're doing more work, but they're keeping that rest time the same. So it increases the intensity of the workout a little bit. The third week, I'll keep the work period the same at 12 seconds, but decrease the rest time from 50 to 45 seconds. Week 4 would be the peak week, where I keep the rest time the same. I don't drop it any lower, but I increase the work time to 15 seconds, so finishing at a 15:45. That's just one example of a 4-week progression that I might use for my clients when it comes to the explosive repeats. So sample A, one example of a finisher using explosive repeats, I might do a assault bike for 12 seconds. RPE is gonna be 10, so you're trying to go as hard as you freaking can for 12 seconds. Rest fully for 50 seconds before moving on to high knees. So you're sprinting in place, focusing on springing up through the balls of the feet and the toes, trying to attack the ground, leave the ground as fast as possible with minimal contact time on the floor with your feet. Rest completely for 50 seconds, followed by medicine ball rainbow slams for 12 seconds, as hard and fast as possible, as many reps as you can get within that time frame. Rest 50 seconds, repeat that for 3 total rounds. Another example of explosive repeats is something called EMOM. So EMOM is every minute on the minute. So I might get my clients to leave a timer running. Every minute the timer beeps, and that's when the set starts. So however fast you complete the work, the remaining time in that minute until it beeps again is your rest. So if I have a boxer doing a workout, I might do explosive repeats using an EMOM and the sled. So every minute they push the sled 20 yards as fast as they can down and back the turf strip. The remaining time of that minute, they shadow box for active recovery, focusing on increasing total work capacity and improving power endurance, meaning that you want to be able to increase that total power output for prolonged periods of time. I might follow that for anywhere between 10 to 12 total rounds. Fourth template that I tend to use for finishers is RFT, or rounds for time. So as opposed to an AMRAP where we have a total set amount of time already carved out and we just try to complete as many rounds as possible, it's the inverse when it comes to rounds for time. So we have the total amount of reps and exercises and or sets already carved out and predetermined before we start it. But the kicker is that we try to complete it as fast as possible, and we record how long it takes us to do so. So I'll usually use about 2 to 4 exercises for this, and I want to record the results, and meaning that I'm basically going to do the set, and I'm going to record how long it either takes me or my clients doing it. And I'm going to try to beat that time frame by completing it faster than the previous week on a week-by-week basis. I'll usually follow these anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks at the most, right, when it comes to kind of the routine. Now, the first sample that I have for rounds for time is something called the Filthy 50. It's more metabolic based, right? So I'm going to have my clients have a hip circle band around their knees. They'll do 50 lateral shuffles each direction, really dialing in on the glutes. After they've done that, they'll do 50 body weight hip thrusts, keeping that hip circle around the knees the entire time. We're gonna do adductions laying on the floor, so laying on their back and just prying the knees in and out, really fighting against that band, really targeting the glute medius, that muscle along the side of your glute, and finishing it off with a compound movement, the squat, just 50 air squats, still keeping that band around the knees so there's good tension on the glutes the entire time. Really great lower body finisher. Conversely, if you want to use something that's a little bit more upper body based, I might do banded tricep extensions for 50, banded bicep curls for 50, and then band pull aparts for 50. You can break down these exercises into as many sets as needed, but the key is to try to keep constant tension on the muscles while you're doing it and trying to complete it as fast as possible while keeping good tempo and form for the exercises, right? Second example might be a little bit more conditioning based, right? We have a 50, 40, 30, 20 kind of like rep protocol when I'm following this one here. Now, I might get my clients to do 50 total push-ups as fast as they can. Again, they could break it down into as many sets as they want. They just want to try to complete it as fast as they can while keeping good form. 40 kettlebell swings after that, assault bike, burn 30 calories as fast as you can, 20 squat jumps, and then 10 medicine ball slams to finish things off. This one's really intense. That one's really gonna get the heart rate up. That's just one example, or two examples rather, of a rounds for time or RFT finisher that you can use in your program. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you know someone who might find use out of this, please feel free to share it with them. Thank you so much for taking the time for watching today. I'll see you guys soon.